All right, so let me go ahead and scoot down and write down our first example. For today, I'll try to keep it as short as possible because it is right before spring break. You will have some assignments at the end, but that's going to be pretty much it for today. So my first example, it's y is equal to, and let's make it something like x squared plus 1. X squared plus 1. And now, notice first of all, this is a quadratic, so let's say this says graph the quadratic. And again, it's a quadratic because it has this x squared term, and it doesn't have a power bigger than x squared. So it's only x squared, there's no x cubed, there's no x to the 4th, etc. It's just x squared, and has some other numbers over here. Okay? So now, the way this is going to work, as I mentioned before, let me try to zoom in a little bit more so you guys can see better. The way it's going to work, we're going to choose a table. So make this kind of like a T-chart over here. Let me make it big so you guys can see it. But here's x, y. We're going to plot some points and then try to graph it on the x and y axis. So we're going to choose some points, and then eventually I know when I get down to, let me make a quick sketch. I should probably be using a ruler, but oh well. So I know I'm eventually going to plot this on a graph, x comma y. So let's see what this looks like. So for the x values, I want to make sure you guys understand that when we're choosing values, we only choose the x. So choose the x values. So what I mean by that is that you literally get to choose, like, I want my x to be 1 or 2 or 10 or 15, whatever you want. The y's, though, it's something you have to see what you get. So this, you have to see what you get based on the equation above, right here. Okay, so we're going to choose these values, the x's, and we're trying to see what do we get over here. So now, the cool thing, or what I would say is the easiest thing to start with, is 0. And you'll see why we like 0 so much. And I'm going to skip 2 spaces and start with 0 over here. And then I highly recommend using small numbers because it's easier. So like 1, 2, and then maybe make one more, like 3 over here. Okay, and these numbers are small, so when I'm doing like all these exponents, multiplying, adding, if I have smaller numbers, it's going to be a little easier. Now, as you remember, let me scoot back up over here. We're going to have a parabola that shoots off in both directions, both the positive and the negative. So even though I want to start at 0, I also want to make sure I have some values that are negative, so like -1, -2. Again, start small. Okay, so make sure when you choose your values, 0 is a good number. But then make sure you plug in like a few negatives, -1, -2, -3 if you want to, and then the positive numbers, 1, 2, 3. Okay, now the way this is going to work is, let's see, I won't go through every single one, but let's say I want to focus on x is equal to, let's use -2. So when x is equal to -2, remember our equation was y is equal to x squared plus 1. Then let me zoom in so you guys can focus on this better. So if x equals 2, I have y is equal to x squared plus 1. Now remember, when I have this right here, x is equal to -2, I'm choosing this value for x. I am only changing the x value, so let me use a different color. I'm only changing the x, but everything else stays the same. So for example, this x just became whatever I chose it to be, -2. But it's still being squared because that's what the equation says, and I'm still adding 1 to it. Okay, so make note of that. When I'm saying like x equals -2, I'm just choosing, I'm going to plug in some value, -2. And then I have to find out what that is. So like -2 squared, and then I'm going to add 1. So the first time, let me show you around, especially so we don't get messed up with this negative. Keep in mind that this is -2 times -2. That's what the squared means. However, I'm squaring a -2, so that's why I have -2 times -2. Okay? Because a lot of people, what they do is say, oh, 2 squared is 4, and then I'm just going to keep the negative. Make sure it's -2, the whole thing squared. So -2 times -2. And why does that matter? Well, -2, what's a negative times a negative? A positive. So then I just have to worry about 2 times 2, which is 4. Which is different if I went like 2 squared 4 and then keep the negative. Notice this should be a positive. And then add 1. Okay, and then 4 plus 1, hopefully you guys can see that one, is just 5. Okay, now with this value, I'm going to scoot back up here. This is what I'm going to choose. Let me scoot back down. What this value is what I found out over here. That's when the x was -2. So this, the y is going to be 5, is what we got. So on the graph, when we start plotting these points, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, -1, -2, -3, and then I can go -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for example, the first point, remember our points are x, y. So that means my first point is going to be -2 on the x's, and then +5. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up here. That's my first point. I have to find a couple more, but like I said, I won't do every single one of them.